Okay, let me call the Inland Wetlands Commission meeting of Monday, November 20th, 2023 to order. Will the secretary take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Here.
Mr. Stepanek.
Here.
Ms. Jameson here. Ms. Brunali. Present. Mr. Perkins.
Absent.
Ms. Sanford.
Here.
Mr. Sillo.
Here.
Ms. Woike.
Here.
Ms. Owsley.
Absent.
Mr. Ramirez.
Here.
Mr. Reddin.
Here.
And I have Sandy Redden. Could you substitute for George Perkins, please?
Yes.
Approval of the agenda. You all have a copy of the agenda. Any comments, corrections, deletions? If not, can I hear a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
And, okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion's carried. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, October 16, 2023. Any comments, corrections, deletions, anything? If not, can I hear an approval or a motion?
I'll move.
Priscilla,
I'll second.
Beth? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion's carried. And the final one is the site visit on November 9th, 2023. You all have a copy of that. Any comments at all, corrections, deletions? If not, can I hear approval?
It says the 6th.
Pardon?
It says December 6th.
What did I say?
Is it December 9th or 6th?
I got the 9th here. Is it this?
The site visit minutes? Is there a typo on the minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at
Yeah.
the new.
I think you jumped ahead. It's okay.
Is it the 9th? We okay with it?
No, so, okay. Are you
Yeah.
currently approving?
Right
the-
here. Is that right?
Correct, that's correct.
That's correct. Is that what you're questioning, the 9th, Sandy?
Yeah, I was reading in the December 6th.
He read ahead to
Oh,
scheduling. the site-
oh. We're still in number 4. We're still in number 4, okay. Can I hear a motion for the site visits? Priscilla,
I second.
Angela, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain as I was not present.
I abstain as well.
Okay. You got that? Okay. Okay, we're gonna open the regular meeting. We have an application for December. Application number 23-16, 238 Marshall Ridge Road. Number 6, scheduled site visit for Wednesday, December 6th at 8 a.m. Is there anyone that cannot make that site visit? Cannot make it. Anthony, can you make it? Thank you.
Putting in my calendar right now, Dan, literally as we speak.
Priscilla, you okay?
I think so.
Beth?
Yes, I
You
can make it.
okay? Beth?
Yes.
Angela?
Yep, I'm fine.
I'm okay. Adam?
Yes.
Good, good. All right, good. Everybody can make it.
Wow. Awesome.
Super deal. That's a first right there. That's good. Okay, moving along with the regular meeting, application number 23-24-07, 45 Beach Road, Walter and Patricia Varian. And this is continued from the October meeting. Robert Frangione, you're up, please.
Good evening. For the record, Rob Frangione, Frangione Engineering, representing Walter Varian. When last we met, there were really, I'd say, 3 outstanding issues. One of which was the composition of the fill that was brought to the site and its characteristics. So we had Brooks Environmental come out, do a random sampling all throughout the site in the stockpile. And they had it tested, brought it to to Phoenix Environmental Labs. And on Friday, I submitted the results of that testing as well as our summary. Long story short, the fill's good enough. It's good enough to stay on site. There is no detectable or is below allowable standards for direct residential exposure for things like VOCs, metal, PCBs, pesticides, all that stuff. So even though fill doesn't look great, chemically it's fine and it can stay on site. We also were asked about the construction of the wall that is on either side of the driveway. And I hand dug on either side of the wall. That was fun. And Kathy was there. She got to watch me try to get through a root. That was fun too. Long story short there, the wall's about 12 to 18 inches deep. It's a rubble stone wall. It's been pointed with concrete. It's a freestanding wall, meaning it's not a retaining wall. So we're not concerned about it falling over or sliding or settling because there's really no weight behind it per se. So those were the two big issues. The third issue was whether or not there should be a third alternative site plan. So the site plan that we've proposed, just to refresh your memory, we're basically starting from the fill pack, grading back at a 4-on-1 slope to comply with zoning regulations. And then
Hold on just a minute, Rob. Alexander, on your laptop, hit mute.
Yes.
So mute your laptop because it creates feedback.
I can hear myself talking, which is really annoying. So it's bad enough you have to do it.
Right on your, is that an iPad? You have an iPad? Oh, boy. Here we go.
Well, I'm muted.
Let's see.
Could be your speakers.
Okay.
Or no.
Okay. Don't hit that again.
So basically we were going to start from the wetland edge, which is clearly delineated by the metal rods that are out there. And then grade back on a 4-on-1 and then do the planting plan that Matt Pop has prepared. I prepared an alternative plan that the site plan that we want to go with takes out about 58 yards of material. The alternative plan, which is a little bit more aggressive of a fill removal, takes out about 169 cubic yards. So the difference between the two plans is about 111 yards. If you overlay the two plans, there's really not a big difference. It's just like one or two contours are kind of shifted. So it's not a huge difference visually, but practically, I mean, 111 yards of fill is a lot of more material to be removed. And so, we're kind of the opinion that the whole point of testing the fill was to determine whether or not it could stay out there. Chemically, it's at a point where it can stay. It's not going to be a detriment to the wetlands. So then it just becomes a question of, are we just being punitive by removing more and more fill? So I know you wanted a compromise plan or some sort of third plan. So I discussed it with my client, and this is going to be a little hard for you to read, but this isn't so much a plan, it's just cross sections. So that's upside down. I'll put it up on the screen and blow it up. It's one of the things that looks really good on my screen, and then when you print it out, it's like you're probably going to get magnifying glass, but again, I'll show it on the screen.
Rob, let me make an announcement that Katie Osley has now joined the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Bonus points if you can read.
Thank you.
Flip to this here. All right, so now you can probably see this a little better on the screen, and I'll really blow it up. So one of the things, so the initial plan, basically, this is the cross section that was proposed under sheet S1, was we were starting at the edge of wetlands and then just grading up 4-on-1. So what we're offering, if it pleases the commission, is to basically come 2 feet back from the edge of those rods. And you can probably see it up on the screen a little bit better than trying to zoom in on your, I can blow it up to 300% here. It's a lot easier to read. Basically benching back about 2 feet from the edge of wetlands and then going up on the 4-on-1 slope and then providing the same buffer demarcation and the planting that Matt Pop has. What that does is it takes out about another 12 cubic yards along the entire bank of the wetlands. So that brings us to 70 cubic yards. So that's kind of not quite halfway, but it's pretty much, it's more than what we initially asked for. I think it gives the commission a little bit more satisfaction as far as fill removal proximate to the wetland. We've demonstrated from the soil testing that the soil is able to stay in place and not be have an adverse impact on a wetland. And that was really the only outstanding items as far as last month. So we're hoping that we can close this and move forward tonight. This has been going on now since May. I know this commission is probably tired of this application, and as is my client and as is the neighbors, we would like to get this put to bed. So with that, just if there's any questions, let's get into them.
Any questions, any comments? Should we start there?
This is Commissioner Brunelli. One question regarding the soil testing. Approximately how many samples were taken from the property?
At least 20. I couldn't keep up with him. He kept going. So he took a 5-pound or 5-gallon bucket and went throughout the site with his shovel and just dig in the stockpile. And the stockpile was the soil that was removed from the wetland edge. So we wanted to make sure we got it all. So there was at least 20 samples.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Angela Jameson for the record. So thank you for what you've set out. And, it's good news that there isn't really toxic stuff in that fill. Nonetheless, it's, as you yourself intimated, it's pretty junky. It's got metal and plastic. So the way I've started to think about this application is, let's forget that there was a violation. Let's just think if the proposals you have put in front of us, if you were doing that de novo, is this something for which we would provide a permit? And something I keep coming back to is, typically when somebody wants to put fill in the upland review area, we don't like it to be too close to the wetlands. And the variants that you've proposed here, they're pretty close to the wetlands. I mean, we've got 15 feet between the wetlands themselves and the boulder. And I think in all of the cases, there would be some fill remaining in part of that 15-foot stretch. That's awfully close to the wetlands.
So my counter to that would be, if we weren't doing, if the violation hadn't occurred and if we weren't doing work in the wetland, this would probably be an administrative application. So it wouldn't have come necessarily before the board. Kathy and I had a discussion about this. And yes, Kathy would normally require some sort of distance separating from the wetland edge to the toe of fill. And the question becomes, each application, each site is unique, and the conditions around the surrounding that site are unique. At this point, the fill is there. We are removing 70 or so yards, and we are planting the hell out of it, because typically if we were to do work inside of the upland review area and fill proximate to the wetlands, a substantial mitigation planting would probably be a permit condition, which we've provided with Matt Pop's plan. So I think, in my opinion, the commission can feel like the commission is consistent with what they would require, or what you would require of any applicant coming in, that there be some sort of mitigation to mitigate for the fill being brought in proximate to the wetland.
Well, let's ask Kathleen what she would do.
Okay. Since we're talking hypotheticals.
So a couple things about this particular one. It is good news that the soil results are, as Brooks Lab has comprehensively evaluated here. So that is very good news. But the quality of the fill is another issue. There certainly are some visible garbage within the fill and things that certainly shouldn't be in that close proximity to a wetlands. If this was to be an administrative wetland application, it's my discretion on what I might have go to the commission.
Mhm.
If you were to come in and propose 2 feet off the wetlands, I'd be having you go to the commission. I can say that I'm doing it currently with another application that's pending before the commission. So 2 feet is really presents a bit of a problem on this particular location because you do have a fairly intact wetlands along the front of this property that has a water course in it that is providing habitat and water purification and rehabilitation of the site. And to have this fill literally at the toe of the slope of it does make me, as the administrative agent, somewhat uncomfortable. I've been doing this for a long period of time. I think we probably do have some soils that have migrated into the wetlands that haven't really been mitigated. Some soils were taken out in between the April filling in of a portion of the wetlands and where you are today. That was not authorized by this commission. That was taken upon yourself to do that activity, perhaps trying to get ahead of what you thought might be the end result of the commission. I have had discussions with the applicant, Rob and Mr. Varian, about this particular violation since April, trying to get to the point where, hopefully the commission would be comfortable with what it is that you're proposing. I'm not comfortable with what it is that you're proposing. So maybe commission members might feel differently on an application such as this. If this was a clean slate and you were coming in, as we had talked, hopefully in January of earlier this year, I probably would have had in my mind, once I knew the criteria around your particular lot, the slope of the land, the type of wetlands that are on the site, what you were intending to do with a usable play space for the family. We have a 50-foot upland review area for a reason. To go down to 15 feet might be comfortable to have your toe of the slope where your disturbed areas and your actual lawn would be at least 15 feet from the actual flagged wetlands, which was difficult to evaluate. So Otto Thiel, the soil scientist, did the best he could with the fact that there was 4 feet over this wetland. So we have now established the wetland line. So I think 2 feet is a step in the right direction, but I don't think it gets me comfortably there that wetlands will be protected at the end of the day. Matt Pop's plan is a good plan. Totally agree with you, Rob, there. Matt has done a very good plan to show a mitigated area between where your usable space would end and the wetlands would begin. I think, for clarification, that planted slope or area would be a no-mow area, so there would not be lawn or fertilization or activities taking place along that strip. So that's a plus.
Everything between the buffer demarcation and the wetland edge is a no-mow. I think he did have that the meadow mix could be mowed once a year in the winter months to its height of 4 to 6 feet. So that's, but it's not manicured lawn. So basically there will be from a point 15 feet to the edge of wetlands. It'll revert back to native once the plants take hold and grow.
I think the other critical part of this particular site is they do have a septic system in that front yard. So cutting back to 25 or 50 feet, it's not going to happen because you're getting too close to the existing septic trenches that are in that front yard. So I too would like to have this one concluded so that you can restore the area. And actually, we still have a small window of opportunity to potentially get this done this year. Small window of opportunity, but I think the commission has to feel comfortable with what's being proposed, or hear from you if there's any additional room to cut that slope back. I did speak with the town planner today regarding existing slopes, and you were trying to accommodate a planning and zoning regulation regarding new slopes.
Right.
And I get that. She did comment that if the slope there was steep, which it was, it kind of came across and then dropped down into non-wetlands, but like 15, 25 feet away, that slope could remain.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. You don't have to meet the planning and zoning slope if your steeper slope already existed.
Hmm.
So that was an interesting conversation I had today with the town planner this afternoon. So.
Yeah, I think much like the wetland edge, we don't know. It was difficult to say what the slope was prior to the fill going in, so.
Well, the one thing that was done in the course of this project taking place way before we got involved is when Mr. Varian had trees removed on the site, he did say that they would chipped over the area. So reestablishing what was there prior is you've got a nice wood chip layer underneath the imported material that would be getting to the existing slope. And certainly an indication of where the existing slope was by that wood chip layer, which was visible in some parts
Mhm.
of the site.
So what do you, what, in terms of feet, what are you suggesting?
Say, the toe of the slope, fill should be removed at minimum of 15 feet from the
Minimum,
flagged wetlands. That's my.
And that would be, just to clarify, that would mean all the fill out 15 feet from the wetlands would be removed.
And then the toe of the slope would start from that 15 foot. So you take this
Yep.
and push it back. And then between where the toe of the slope would be now established and the edge of the wetlands, that's where the landscaping map
Yeah.
plan gets kind of incorporated.
From where
into
the
that area.
boulders would be moved to, or the
Much more
boulders.
fill would that be, Mr. Frangione?
A lot.
How deep, what's the, I mean, I have the scale here, but
So let me just draw. a
what is
quick-
it, 200? Is that 200, my guess?
So let's assume for, for lack of a better, any other information. So I've just put, whoops. I've just put a red line. So this flag here that I'm showing here, that's the edge of where the lawn was, where the disturbance started. And so if we drew a straight line, basically from there to where the wetlands flags are, let's assume that was the original grade. Yeah, because we have two boundary conditions. We have the top of the slope or the old edge of disturbance here, and then the wetlands edge, which is back down to original grade there. So so this wedge that's in here is roughly what the fill pack that was brought in. So if using Kathy's thing, what we would do is basically, if we were to assume that this is this point right here, whoops, let me draw another, let's draw a line. Here's 15 feet. And I were to go, something like that for my new slope. So now basically, if you can follow my hand here, let's see if I can you see it on there?
Mhm.
Yeah. This whole wedge would come out. So we know that this wedge is roughly 70 cubic yards of material. This wedge looks to be at least double that, if not more. So now that would probably mean that that's more fill coming out than our alternative site plan, which had 112 yards. So I don't know, I feel like that's becoming punitive.
Well, we certainly, have heard you about what's involved in mitigating this situation, but sad though it is, you did bring that fill in, and that fill is not great fill and it's very close to the wetlands. We wish you hadn't, and I'm sure you wish you hadn't at this point. But it seems to me that that's the amount that needs to come out to protect the wetlands, to go back to 15 feet. I hear what was said about can't go further than that. I had been thinking 25 feet, but then you start to interfere with the septic system, and that would not be good. So it seems to me that 15 feet, taking all the fill that was added, is a reasonable compromise.
Anthony?
So it sounds like it's 200 yards.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was just saying,
Yeah,
quick,
so it sounds like
quick
it's 200
math.
yards.
So two,
So if it's 200 yards roughly.
Right.
Right, so what you said it was to be 75. I'm just trying to think of like a solution like in the field, I guess. But I mean, I guess for like a little bit more truck, I mean, and then again, I'm just jumping in, but from what I see, I mean, we do a boulder wall, so it takes some of the slope out,
that's an option.
right? Like if we do a boulder wall along that thing, it might save you. Or if we do a boulder wall where the slope doesn't come that far and the dirt sits up against the boulder wall, maybe we can accommodate a couple feet, right? So the boulder will be, instead of 15, the boulder will be 13, the face of the boulder, right? So it saves you a couple more feet.
Yeah.
If there's something like that where you can truck in a couple of boulders, but if you truck in a couple of boulders,
Right.
it saves you a couple feet. And again, I'm only saying it just because it sounds like everyone wants to wrap it up.
Right.
And I'm just thinking in field conditions, you drop boulders on that wall,
Mhm.
and I think everyone starts being happy, right?
I think I would like to clarify a few things before I'd say I'm happy. To me, it seems important to take out all fill within 15 feet of the wetlands. I'm not quite sure how you can achieve that by just taking 13 and putting boulders there. So, we'd all like to wrap this up. We would all have liked to have wrapped it up months ago. We would all have liked this not to have happened, but we are where we are, and we need to come up with a solution that best protects the wetlands, given what has happened.
And I think we also
Want
want to protect the wetlands. I think we all want the same thing. It's how do we accomplish it?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the horse trading comes in. And I feel like that's what we're doing at this point, because we don't like the look of the fill. We don't like the stuff that's in it, but chemically it's inert. So it's like, okay, what's good enough? And
So what if you did a boulder wall and did filter fabric on the backside of it?
Mm.
Does that help any sort of
I
like
think
stuff going into the wetlands? If you wrapped it underneath and on the front of a boulder wall, even if it was at 15 feet,
Mhm.
you get the additional boulder, let's say is another 2 feet, right? So we dig back to 15, you put filter fabric along the whole side of it, trap rock, and on the other side.
Yeah, I think the issue there is the cost of construction of the wall. I think we would rather just go with a steeper slope, vegetate it. And I mean, the wall sounds great, but I think the incremental cost of removing the 2 feet of fill versus constructing a boulder wall, I think it's cheaper just to remove the fill.
So just,
cheaper?
we're talking
Probably
about
cheaper, yeah.
200 cubic yards. That is not a significant amount of material to
Katie,
take
do
off
you
the
wanna say
site.
something?
I actually just had a quick question, and maybe Dan, you or Kathleen could answer it most effectively. Do we need to consider precedent? Is there a concern for setting a precedent where we say there can be activity within 15 years? And could that come back on a later date where another applicant says to us, but wait, look?
Yeah,
So that was my question.
It's a good question, and I think what Rob was talking about a little bit before, and I tried to add on to that, is each site is unique and specific. So there are justifications for different variables that are applied to the site, depending on what the activity that they're asking for. So if I were looking at this as a clean administrative wetland application, I don't think I'd be comfortable allowing fill to go at the wetland line, because the wetland line's a little variable. Yes, it's, again, Otto did the best he could with what he was working with. So Precedent, not necessarily. If we were consistently allowing people to fill right up to the wetland line, then that's what we do. But no, that's not what we do.
Got it.
So,
So, all right, let me think about, I'm thinking out loud, and I do that a lot, and sometimes I talk back. What if we decide as a permit condition that we were to peel it back the 15 feet? But let's say when we get 5 feet in, we see the wood chip layer. And the fill isn't as bad as we thought it was. So that by the time we get to 15 feet, we're back to where we were. So instead of the slope being like this now we're gonna pull it back, get to here. But when we get here, we realize, oh, there's only this much fill. So it's not actually 200 yards, it's less than that.
I mean, that's part of what we don't know. So I think 200 yards might be an overestimate. 200 yards is not a significant amount. 200 yards could potentially be regraded on the site outside of wetlands and outside of the 50-foot review area. Those are all things to think about. I don't know if there's something else. Anthony, do you think 200 cubic yards is a significant amount of material to?
No, if the spot is big enough, I don't think it's a lot of fill to move.
So in
Again, it's also not a lot of fill to truck. It's 10
Right, it's
trucks,
10 or.
right?
I
So
had
it's not bad.
7.
I mean, I
had
get it.
7
like,
large trucks. That's
I get it.
was my
It's-
calculation.
I understand that, and I understand everything costs money, but
The good
I
news.
think in the,
is
I think in the spirit of give and take, I think for 5, 6 grand in trucking, I mean, I don't think it's a huge ask by the commission, but
and-
again, to solve
Mhm.
this problem, again, I don't know how much, your contractor would say that it would take, but I mean, I figure 10 trucks at $4,450 to get rid of fill, right? That's what the going rate is. So at 5 grand, you get rid of some fill.
Also, it's been tested and certified as clean, so you.
Yeah,
have
that's
that-
the good
you ha-
part. If
You have
you
that
don't-
going.
you don't
you
have
have
to
that
truck
going
that's
for you.
contaminated,
It's not
so
contaminated.
So at least I got that going
So,
for me.
yeah.
it's not, you don't have to truck it as contaminated either, to Kathleen's point.
Mhm.
So, I mean, again, I think in the spirit of wrapping it up,
Mhm.
for a couple $1,000, wrap it up.
I would rather not leave it vague with wood chips and trying to,
Mhm.
that's a little too vague for me. And had we known that going in, and we'd done some example testing and you said this is what it was, then, but I think that's a little too vague to be trying to work it in the field, personally, for me. I'd rather have a plan. I think it's easier for the variance if they have a plan of what's been approved, then they get a good quote on what they're gonna be charged to finish this project.
Kathleen, I have one question. It's Sandy Rudden. Because I came into this after this was started. Do we know how much fill was put in? Do we have the cubic yards of fill that was put in?
How many trucks did they bring?
55 trucks.
Hmm.
Truckloads.
How many?
How many?
55
Oh,
55.
of varying
Right.
size.
Right.
So on a relative
Thanks, Mark.
basis,
This is coming out.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
it's not a lot coming out.
And this is Angela Jameson for the record. I mean, you do have the possibility of putting that fill somewhere else on the property that is nowhere near the wetlands and the upland review area.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm looking at on this, if you can see my hand, we've got all of this area up here. In theory, we could,
Not all of it, because
Reduce-
remember, there's a mistake on the plan where the water course
Right.
goes across the other side, so take 50 feet off of that. and you
so
might-
the 50-foot upland, I didn't put the 50-foot upland on here because we didn't know exactly. Oh, no, I did. Yeah, here it is. So this line here is the 50-foot upland review line. Now this line here. So basically to the left of where it says disturbed area, north of the driveway, we could put some. There's really not a lot of place to lose it between the septic system and the stockpile. I mean, most of it's gonna have to come off. I don't see how I don't see how we can lose it on site.
I just was putting it out as a.
Yeah, no, I'm just realistically, I mean, we could maybe, lose a couple of truckloads over here, but besides that. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't see any way forward except to accept the 15-foot.
That puts it at the wall, or where does that put it?
So
I can't see anything.
oh, I'm sorry, 15 feet. So where we're gonna put, where we were going to put the fence, and that fence will still stay there.
The split rail.
Split rail, this is the 15-foot right here. So basically we'd remove all of the material where we're showing this in here.
So Walter, it's the exact same play area that you're trying to establish.
Right.
It still is being established.
Okay.
We're just getting rid of
Phil,
the part that's closest to the,
the wetlands.
Mhm. And I assume one of the permit conditions will be you're gonna want somebody out there monitoring it.
I think I had some recommendations. I'll
Okay.
have to go back and look at them.
I live right around the corner from it, so it's probably gonna be me, but.
Well, well, I don't know if we're quite there yet.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Kathleen, if whatever we accept, do we have to have Rob come back with a detailed plan? Or can we just talk it through and he can do it, or do we need a plan?
Well, if that's the direction that the commission is thinking this is going to go in, I think then what I would recommend is a special condition that reflects the discussion this evening, indicating 15 feet from the wetland line to, you know.
To be
into
worked out with
into the
staff
site
or
is-
something, we can.
Yeah, and that you do submit a plan so that the contractor who'll be doing the work will have the plan on.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to again. not
Say it
have to have
again,
another-
Rob.
The third meeting on this, that's all. So as a permit condition, what we could say, I would suggest is that the engineer come up with a plan that shows the 15-foot removal to be worked out with Kathy, with staff.
That okay with you?
That's fine. It should be filed in the, you know, with the department, obviously prior to implementation, so then we can adjust it. Then also, do you want me to mention other potential special conditions? I'm just trying to find my notes. Some notes in here. So I think we've resolved, some of my notes are old from last month because I hadn't had the testing results yet. So the first one that I had on the staff report was testing the fill, but we've eliminated that one. So I think we're fine with not having that as a requirement. The comprehensive report that was done by Phoenix Lab and Brooks Laboratory is acceptable. So prior to commencement of mitigation activities, the engineer of record shall organize a pre-construction site meeting and include the site engineer, town wetland agent, and the property owner and site contractor, because I think everyone needs to be on the same page. And
Right.
at that time, if you had your sketch,
Mhm.
then we can discuss it then. So, but it should be a special condition that does get done.
Right.
The other special condition that I'm suggesting is upon completion of the pre-construction site meeting, activities associated with the restoration of the site shall commence immediately and be completed within the fall of 2023. Hopeful that we can get it done in fall of 2023, including mitigation plantings. They're still planting, so potentially it can be done. Then I just have a caveat, if unable to do so due to weather conditions or not advised by the landscape architect, then all mitigation activities shall be completed no later than spring of 2024. I think with this, it's very typical that I will have a special condition that moves the violation from non-violation. So that's the commission's goal too, to get this restored as quickly as possible. So I think that's a reasonable special condition. And then the third one that I had, or it's just be the fourth one, upon completion of mitigation activities, the engineer of record and landscape architect shall certify that the mitigation plan has been properly implemented and provide final written reports to town staff for review. So that's the closing loop of, okay, we're 15 feet, we've done the planting, everything's done in accordance. So those were some special conditions that I had contemplated during this review. I don't know if anyone had any additional things.
Well, I just had an additional question, if I may. This is Angela Jameson. So the boulders or split rail fence would remain 15 feet?
Yes,
Okay, so that sighting does not change?
correct.
Okay, so I guess we need to discuss whether we're comfortable with a split rail fence rather than boulders, because the original application was for boulders, I believe.
My client would prefer a split rail fence. It just looks nicer. And it really, you're not going to get a lawnmower through us. If there's no gate in the fence, you're not going to get a mower through there. In theory, if you had boulders, could you get someone in there? Possibly a small one, but if we're really trying to just say none shall pass this point, I think it's better to go with the split rail fence.
Well, fences are easier to move than boulders.
Right, but if you're talking about somebody with a mower in the
Mhm.
field and they see a fence, they're not going to go over the fence. Whereas they see rocks on the ground, they might try to go in between them. I'm just hypothesizing. People see fences, they tend to see that as a line that you shouldn't be crossing. So
I think in this case, a fence actually might make more sense for the Varian family because they tend to use this as a play area. So
Mhm.
potentially it would be helpful to have a fence as opposed to a boulder. I think once a fence of the quality that I'm sure you're going to install is installed, I don't see, an issue with it being relocated without a lot of effort, so. I think the fence is acceptable, to.
I think a fence would look better.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, yeah.
I had originally proposed boulders because it's actually cheaper for the sunken boulders, being cost conscious of this, rocks, you can get rocks just about anywhere. Fences actually cost more, but they're willing to do it. And again, it'll look better. So.
Well, I certainly take the point it'll be safer for your children to have a fence rather than just boulders.
Any other questions or comments? Where's Anthony's here?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't believe it.
I have.
He's by
Any
he's by
comments,
construction
any more
guru.
comments, Anthony?
I don't know. I think it's good that Angela jogged through everything, right? I think it's safer for the kids, for the fence. I mean,
Yeah,
and I agree with Mr. Frangione, like, you're not gonna get equipment past there where if someone's gonna go back there, like, let's say a random someone on the landscaping crew is gonna go back there with a weed whacker, they might go all the way around those rocks and get in. So I think a fence is probably a little bit better line of demarcation. But it was definitely good to walk through. I think if they, to Kathleen's point, I think if they do take out the certain amount of fill, I feel like everyone's happy, especially the 15 feet, right? So it's further enough away. We're not setting any precedences. And personally, I mean, as a contractor, I like when Kathleen's happy. When she's happy, everyone's happy.
I know.
Kathleen always
The commission's
errs on the,
application. The commission's
no, but,
application.
Kathleen is obviously the professional in the room when it comes to the wetland stuff, so. And I think she always errs on the side of caution, so it's nice to know that, we're in the right direction, and again, when she's satisfied, and if we do a special condition that's pending approval by Kathleen, I mean, I'm personally more than comfortable with it. So I guess that's kind of my sole spiel.
what about you, Angela?
Yes, I think that given the nature of the site and where the septic system is, 15 feet is acceptable. I think it's fine to have the split rail fence rather than the boulders.
Anything down there, Sandy? Adam, anything? This is it'd be quite a motion to make here, I would think, right?
Shall I have a go?
Why don't you have a go?
But please interrupt me along the way. So I move that we agree to provide an inland wetlands permit based upon the discussion this evening and special conditions, importantly, that all fill within 15 feet of the wetlands that had been imported will be removed, and that the plan will be provided to the inland wetland agent before or at the pre-construction site visit that should occur, and would include the site engineer, town wetland agent, property owner, and site contractor. And upon completion of the pre-construction site meeting, activities should commence immediately and be completed within the fall of 2023, including mitigation plantings. If due to weather, you're not able to do that, then all mitigation activities to be completed no later than the spring of 2024. A further special condition: upon completion of mitigation activities, the engineer and landscape architect shall certify that the mitigation plan has been properly implemented and provide final written reports to town staff for review. Have I forgotten anything?
There you go. First one was good.
So,
Just one question for clarification, because we've been talking about the fill, but there was also the issue of the wall. So I just think we should be clear as to whether our permit is approving the activity relating to the wall or not. So there's not a question in the future.
Right, Rob did talk about the wall at the very beginning, I think the investigation that he did, I was there for that portion of it. He did dig
Mm.
down along those foundations to determine the footing, because that was not done by anyone involving his team. And off the top of my head, it was about, did you say 400 square feet of impact?
Right, I basically taking the area of the wall, and then offsetting it by like a foot, figuring that they were in there, you know, working around. I figured it was about 400 square feet of disturbance. And my point was, we're proposing 2,200 square feet of mitigation. So I think the mitigation that we're doing offsets the disturbance that was done for the wall.
And I will add that to the wetland permit that gets issued, that is, an activity that was done that is included in the permit. The only thing that you might need to change is the DEP reporting form may have a calculation change on that. So we'll get that corrected as well. So,
I just wanted to make sure they weren't going to have an issue in the future.
Thank you.
Any other comments at all? Anthony,
I'm good.
you good? Down there, Adam? Good, okay.
so I move approval
With the conditions.
with the conditions
Yeah,
as specified, yes.
Who wants to second it? Anthony?
I don't think I
no,
can
he
vote.
can't.
You
He's
can't,
not-
no,
yeah,
no,
he's-
I'll go
he
through the
was,
voting here.
Not here through the entire.
You went, yeah.
I'll second it.
Who's gonna second it?
Sandy.
Andy.
Sandy. Okay, now let's decide who's gonna vote. Sandy, you can vote because you've heard both sessions, right? Adam, you didn't go
Yep,
through
you're
the first,
gonna
you didn't go through the first.
He's
one.
gonna sit this one out.
Oh, okay. Angela, you're okay. Beth is okay.
Mhm.
You heard the first, I mean, you went
Yeah, I
through the
listened
first
to the whole
today, so
thing,
you're
yes.
okay. Priscilla's okay. Anthony, you're not okay because you didn't go through the first session, right?
I would be, but yes, I cannot vote, yeah. so,
You cannot vote.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
Katie?
Katie, I'm sorry, yeah.
Did you-
Yep, I was at
Is
both,
she sworn in though?
For both.
but I'm not, yeah, I'm
You
not,
haven't seated her.
I haven't.
I haven't, I
Right.
haven't seen her yet, yeah. So.
Maybe you should seat her for Anthony for this.
No, that's a good
issue.
idea. You could do that.
Can I switch it
Yep.
back and forth like that?
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay. All right, so Katie, you take the place of Anthony on this, substitute for him.
All right.
The role of Andy played by Katie.
So all those in favor, all those that can vote, raise their hands in favor. Anyone opposed? Nobody opposed, so the motion's carried. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and
Thank
happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Let's get this thing done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
Yes, I
keep
have.
in touch. We'll Keep pushing forward.
You know where I live.
I know where everyone.
You guys.
All right, thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Before we move on to number 8, I want to make an announcement that if there's anyone here in the audience or on TV, for number 10, application number 232414, it's number 10 on here. We're not going to hear that tonight. All we're doing is going to vote to go to a public hearing. So, you can certainly stay and watch us or hear us, but I'm not going to hear the public, application for St. Luke's Foundation tonight. All right, moving on to number 8, application number 232411, 650 Laurel Road. Agent Alexandria Mark, yes.
Good evening, Alexandra Mark, wetlands and soil scientist and landscape designer. So today I would like to present a slideshow and introduce you to our project and the property. So here we go. It's 650 Laurel Road in New Canaan, and you can see the view from the road. And here's the bird view. So you can actually see that this property is quite interesting. So you have the single family residence located within the central portion of the property. And it is surrounded by lawn, but there's not much lawn. And then on the front of it, you can see the slope, and the slope goes down. And then you have the pond and the pond area, which is maintained as a meadow. And then the whole area is surrounded by quite a large woodland area. So it is being preserved in a quite natural state. It is a 4.13 acre site, and it is in residential zone 4AC, and also located within the Poorhouse Brook watershed. Here are the wetlands. I was the one who delineated the wetland on February 25th this year. And the soils found there were Arsaco siltloan, which is a very poorly drained soil, very wet, seasonally flooded. In brown, you can see the wetland, and going from the top of the slide, we have a red maple swamp environment here. And then we have a Poorhouse Brook crossing. And then you will have a pond down the stream, and the area which is maintained by a wet meadow. And then it ends with another red maple swamp environment. And as you can see, it's a beautiful mosaic of different habitats, which are very important for actually wildlife. Here are some pictures, and starting from the top, you have a view of the driveway crossing through the brook. You have 2 pipes which allow the water to flow through. Then going to the next picture, this is the brook, which is making its way to the pond. And then we have a pond, which you can see it's surrounded by a meadow. It looks a little bit like a lawn, but actually it's not, because it's not mowed on regular basis. And then the bottom picture shows the brook leaving the pond, and the last one shows the edge of the red maple swamp. Here's our project, and what we're proposing, as you see, the pond is existing and is getting very shallow, and we would like to manage it. Once you establish a pond, unfortunately, from time to time, it needs to be managed. It's getting shallower because the stream brings a lot of sediment, especially during the storm events. You have a lot of sediment being in suspension carried to the pond. And it's just a matter of time for the pond to get shallower and shallower. So what we are proposing to restore the pond, and the way we're going to do this, we're going to come down the driveway along the arrows, and then do the crossing with our excavator, and then go down towards the pond. And we will use proper erosion control. So the orange line is the silt fence, double silt fence with hay bales in between, protecting the rest of the wetland areas to stay intact. At the entrance of the brook, we're going to install a forebay or a plunge pool. So it's a, I would say it's a mini pond. So the way it works is just slows down the energy of the flow, captures some of the sediment. This way you can keep the sediment within the forebay and prevent the sediment from getting into the pond. So you basically extend the lifetime of the pond.
Alexander, before you move on from that, do you have a sizing for that? Because I couldn't see it. Do you approximately know, is it like 4 feet by? Do you have an idea of how large that forebay is going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be basically fitting the width of the channel
Okay.
a little bit wider because we'll have to have the slopes a little bit worked out, and it's going to be kind of not long, but more like a egg shape, I would say. But it's going to be more or less within the channel, so it's not going to be anything major and larger.
Thank you.
So before we start dredging, we'd like to make sure that we lower the water table in the pond. So it's going to be easier to start excavating it. So the blue line and the arrow here. So here in this forebay or the plunge pool, we're going to have a pump, and the pump is going to be pumping the water coming from the river through the pipe, and is going to be going around or skipping the pond, and then it's going to be discharged on the other side of the pond to the channel. So this way, we're not going to be introducing any sediment to the flow, and we're going to be protecting the wetland down the stream. And you can see that here we have hay bales and filtration mechanism with the gravel to make sure that if something happens, there will be no dirty water coming to the pond, through the pond, and exiting to the stream and the wetland system down the road. So when we start excavation, there's going to be all reached from this section of the pond. So we're not going to be going to the other side. We're not going to be disturbing the wetland. If the soil is saturated, we're going to be using construction mats. So this way we'll prevent compaction of the soil. In the green is the area where we're going to be disposing of the sediment. And this is actually a very interesting method I've heard of how it's going to be done. So basically along the edge of this area, we're going to dig a trench, and the trench is going to create a physical barrier, but also is going to be absorbing all the water draining from the wet sediment. So this way we're going to be dewatering the sediment, and this is actually going to be also the final destination of the sediment. Here's a cross section, so you can have a better idea. So we have a slope here. This is the existing. And then the orange area is the fill which is going to be placed. The fill, the slope, existing slope is pretty steep, is actually being stabilized very successfully with juniper horizontalis, which is the one which is low growing but going wide. And our slope is going to be very similar, mimicking the same gradient. And we're going to be more than 20 feet away from the pond. And here on the cross section, you can see the current depth of the pond, which is 5 feet. And we're going to push 3 feet deeper to reach 8 feet deep area. And in here, I actually like this area photograph because it shows you where the current slope is clearly. And then in yellow, the area highlighted is going to be our fill deposited after the excavation. We are planning or estimating that we're going to have 20,000 cubic feet of sediment removed from the pond during the excavation. And actually, I did cover those details. So we're not going to be exceeding the pond. So the area of the pond is going to be remaining. We're not making bigger. We're not going to go anywhere else. We're basically just going to make the pond deeper. And the method of dredging is going to be mechanical dredging because in this kind of setting, it's a better choice and also it's more economically viable. What are the values of dredging? Actually, there are benefits, not only aesthetic, but also wildlife and long-term benefits. As you know, when ponds start shallowing, the water is heating up and losing oxygen. And hypoxia causes fish kill and affects other aquatic organisms. So maintaining the depth and the health of the pond is very important. Also, accumulating with the sediment are a lot of nutrients, and those nutrients causing a lot of problems, such as like algal blooms and overgrowth of other vegetation. And whenever we have vegetation overgrowth, all the dead plants, the material is being accumulated and obviously filling in the pond and creating a high nutrients situation. So with the sediment, the nutrients are going to be removed, so the pond is going to be healthier. And this is my presentation. I'm here to answer your questions. And Mark Helen is here with me, and he's the owner. So feel free to ask him as well.
Good presentation.
Yeah, very good. I've been meeting with Mark and his family on the pond for a little while. So Mark put a lot of work into getting it to this point. Alexandra has brought it over the line. So this pond, I think your application said was done in 1997.
Yes.
Yeah, so that
98.
98. So it was created in 1998. That embankment is likely where they put the other fill when they dredged the pond. I didn't really have too many comments on this because to me, it's pretty straightforward. Everything Alexandra has established on the record is accurate. The pond health will be improved post dredging. It's certainly aesthetically pleasing on the property to have a nice pond for this location because it's centered on the property. Rob Pennington is an experienced dredger. I believe he'll be doing the work for you. I can't think, I don't think I wasn't sure of the sizing of the basin that they're gonna put in, which is a good thing to do right now. The pond does not have that, where it has a little sediment trap at the beginning of once the pond's clean, then they can hand clean that other trap periodically rather than doing a full-on dredging for future projects.
Is there anyone living in the house? You are, oh, okay.
No, my mother lives
Your mother's living in there? Yeah.
back and forth from, she goes back and forth from Florida to here. so
Oh, I see.
she's a resident in
Yeah.
Florida.
Because it did look like it might be empty when we were there looking at it, but you know.
I gave her a lecture about that the other day. Somebody waiting for me. And it was like, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night, and I said, Mom, this is embarrassing. I got people waiting for me and it looks like it's a haunted house. And the thing about it is, I had all these timers, light timers installed. And I personally set them up, right, time-wise, to go on around the house. And somebody who kept turning them off and changing the timers, so they wouldn't work. And I said, Mom, you gotta stop doing it.
Oh.
Anyway.
Any questions? Anyone?
Wow, not one
No?
question.
Well-
Not
That
one
is-
question, no.
That's impressive.
Oh.
Look,
yes.
look.
Sorry, I was
okay.
just I was just interested in something you said, Miss Mark. You said you talked about doing mechanical dredging, and of course it'd be less expensive than doing it manually. And you said it would be better. I'm just interested on why it's better, and you know, is it a smaller pond where you would perhaps have thought about manual dredging?
So there are two methods of dredging. Obviously, you're not going to take the shovel and go on your
No.
own and start excavating. It's going to take you time. So we have two types of dredging methods. One is the hydro, and basically it it does a vacuum clean kind of work. So you come, you suck the sediment, you have a big dirt bag where everything goes, and then the water's there, and then either leave the sediment at the site or you track it away. This is more of a conventional dredging, the excavation. So the hydro dredging is valid when you have easy sediment and you have usually larger ponds. For this one, when you have good access, it's actually less expensive. It's almost like the price almost doubles for hydro dredging.
Most likely it was a excavator that dredged the first pond. I
Yeah.
imagine it was just based on the slopes. So yeah, that is a good fit to the pond. When people do come in to talk to me about dredging their pond, I try to get them to talk to a few different types of dredging operations because there are a few operators out there, and it does depend on the setting and the pond. I think you may have even spoken to a couple different folks
I did.
during this and ultimately went with Pennington's.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Brunelli. One question. It's a significant amount of material that's going to be coming out of the pond. Could you explain the thought process on having the fill remain on the premises, 20 feet from the wetlands, as opposed to having it further away or moving it offsite?
Obviously, this is an economical decision to leave it there. But also, if you go to the site, you see the very steep slope, which leads from the house down. And it's kind of challenging to walk from the house over the slope to the pond. So now you're going to have almost like another terrace, and it's going to be like more gradual transition. So this will aesthetically and topographically wise help the landscape. So what's going to happen, we're going to be dewatering the sediment there, and then it's going to be obviously stabilized, it's going to be seeded, and lawn is going to be growing over it. So it is going to be stable, and it's not going to really change the whatever is being used for the ground cover today is going to be very similar.
Thank you.
If no questions, can we have a motion? I make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second it. That's Sanford.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Good. Thank you.
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. What are you thinking for timing?
Depends on the weather.
Okay.
Because we're gonna, ideally, you and I discussed it. I mean, this has been the wettest year I've ever seen. And usually the pond, in August, September, it's like
Right.
dried up. And hopefully
Okay.
next year it gets like, is that okay? to
Oh,
wait till
absolutely. Your
next year,
permit's good for
August?
5 years. I just like to have an idea of when you might be
Yeah,
starting, and
I mean,
that's
I
fine.
mean, that would be ideal. Yeah.
That would be ideal, actually, if the weather cooperates. We'll see.
Well,
Thank
lovely.
you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Good.
it.
Thank you.
Okay, application number 23-24-13, 845 West Road.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Joe.
Joe's gonna have to pronounce his last name.
Zero.
We take a couple vowels out. Let's make it easier. So.
So-
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good.
So I'm Joe Sanastero. I'm the owner of All Terrain Services, and I'm representing Lance Minor and 845 West Road. We were requesting to do maintenance, removal of silt. We did this pond, we dredged this pond 7 years ago. I think 7 years ago, I believe, yeah.
Only
And,
7 years ago. Some of you remembered the site when we went on the site
I
visit.
do.
Yeah, and since it's a quick running stream that goes through there, quite a lot of sediment ends up going to the same area. And since this pond is fairly close to his house, if he gets too much of an overflow rain, especially like in March when we have the snow thaw and heavy rains, the water will come into his house. So that's why we did it 7 years ago. We did an extensive dredge back then. And now looking at it again, we're seeing that it's accumulating in one corner of the pond. which is actually easier for us because it's literally right against the bank, so it's easy to sign. And so I'm just asking for permission to do a maintenance removal of silt and hopefully extend the permit for the future if I could. What's typical time frame for a permit lasts, what, 5 years?
It's 5 years.
Could we extend it? Like, is there a maximum we extend it or no? Is there?
The commission has issued 10-year permits.
Okay, because I believe we're gonna have to do this again. I mean, I don't know, Lance is kind of old. Sorry, Lance, but he's like 95, I think, or he's quite old. So I don't think we're gonna be doing it again for him,
Yeah,
but just
You
have
could always,
permit
you
open.
could get the 5-year permit, depending on, commission's
Okay.
desires, and then ask for an extension if you wanted to extend it. That's probably the best way to handle it.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't realize that I could do that because the first one probably would have been better to extend that to 10 years, then I wouldn't have
Right.
to come here again, but
Fortunately, with the storms that we've been having, some of these ponds that have, dams or barriers at the outflow, they become settling basins. So, one thing about this particular location, so Joe's done a couple ponds successfully here in New Canaan. He's had some tricky locations to work at over the years.
it's our helicopter to do it, so no one knows how we
Yeah,
get in now.
that's it.
So.
But you amended the amount of cubic yards, and I've forgotten what ultimately you decided it was going to be.
I think it's only gonna be like 20 yards, to be honest with you.
So it's
20 to
actually a
40,
fairly
it's not
small
much.
amount
It's-
that's coming out, but he does need permission to do that. So like I said, the other one was a bigger pond maintenance project. This one's a little bit smaller, but still requires some. And they are going to be keeping, you didn't mention this, but you're going to be keeping the material on site.
Everything
So
will be on site and everything will be, the funny thing is, last time you couldn't figure out where we put the fill.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
kind of like what I specialize in, because I don't want you to know where we put the fill, right? We want to put it in a legal place, but we don't want to be intrusive where you say, hey, that's where Joe put the fill, right? So and I'll tell you the secret now, because you're gonna see it probably, because it won't be grassed in by the time we finish. So what we basically did was, if you look at the property, it's probably it's more than 100 feet away from the edge of the pond. There's a slope that goes up into the woods. And what we basically did was we dug into the hill and made a basin in there, put all the fill there, had it dewater there, and then I smeared it up against the hill. So it looks like we weren't ever there. So it literally just looks like the same hill, but it's visually out 4 feet, but you can't tell that we bumped out the hill 4 feet. So we just reversed engineered a gravity, right? So basically up instead of going down. And we're gonna do the same thing this time. And that's about it. We're gonna take care. We're gonna use our plastic mats, so that way we don't even touch the grass. And the place will be spotless when we leave. So
I would imagine the water comes down there pretty rapidly, right?
yeah, that's our biggest
And then
always our
you've
biggest
got
hurdle.
a bend down there, and and all that stuff collects there.
Exactly.
It takes a sharp right and then it collects right, and that's where I see most of the leaves and the silt and stuff like that, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It always goes to the same spot because that's the way
Goes to the
the water
same
flows.
spot,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And then-
And you really can't fix it because I'd have to redig the whole, not redig the whole pond, but I'd have to reshape that corner, which
Yep,
would literally be
yeah.
redigging out the pond and shaping that pond,
Yeah.
but I'm just asking to remove what we can see, the silt that we can see.
Okay, when would you start? Do it this year? Or?
I actually, obviously August is the best time, but I actually prefer when the ground freezes because then we have our special mats we lay out to drive the equipment over. But when the ground's frozen, it's even easier because there's zero disturbance. And we stay on the plastic mats the whole time. We literally bring the machine in on the mats. We put all the mats down where we're putting the soil, and the machine literally stays on the mats to bring it into the backwoods. It's literally on the mats the whole time. So.
Is that a wood cutter in the driveway or what?
Yeah, we did that there. There was a tree that actually cracked that was leaning into the house, and we cut it down because it was gonna literally kill the plants. So we had to take the tree down, so.
I think in addition to doing the dredging, you maintain the property as well.
We maintain the property also, yeah.
Kind of knows
Yeah.
the property pretty well.
Yeah, it's perfect. But Lance is a great guy, I'm gonna you know, we're all on borrowed time, but he's a little closer to borrowed time than we are. So, but if you have any questions,
All right, that's a good one. Any questions?
Well, I think we're all on borrowed.
yeah, we
time,
all,
but don't like to admit it.
personally, we all are, yes, absolutely.
Can I hear a motion? Anybody want, Anthony, I keep coming back to you, but anything you want me to say? Yeah,
The man knows what he's doing. I'm not gonna.
yeah, that's
Not gonna say anything,
right.
I'm not gonna say anything to him. He knows more than me, I think, on this one and the property.
Can I hear a motion? Priscilla makes a motion.
Second.
And who's gonna second it? Sandy, you want a second? Okay, good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, guys.
you.
Appreciate your time. And if I can start when the ground freezes, I prefer that. I'd love to get it done this winter if I can. But worst case scenario, we'll have to wait till August, you know, but if we can do it now, I'd love to get it done now. So we'll see what happens.
Do it. Yeah, get it done.
And then if there is any disturbance from say silt that like runs off the mat, we'll put hay down and seed. So that way the rain won't wash anything back into the pond. So we'll stabilize it with hay and seed. Seed might not grow, but the hay will at least hold it back. You know,
We'll,
so.
we'll be back to fix it, I'm sure.
Oh, it'll be perfect. Don't worry. So,
Lance will
absolutely.
make sure.
Exactly, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, application number 232414, 377 North Wilton Road. All we want to do is vote on going to a public hearing
Yeah, I
tonight.
just wanted to announce for the record, a petition for a public hearing was received from the neighbors or a contingent of folks here in town. And so due to that petition being received in the office, no presentation is made this evening. And a vote to go to a public hearing is your next option. So the meeting, I think it's December 16th, I think. December meeting,
18th.
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 So you would just make a motion to go to public hearing, December 18th.
All right, can I have a motion to go to a public hearing? Beth? Let's have Beth give them up.
Yeah.
Which bed?
Burnell, there. You want to give the motion?
So I move that we have a public hearing on application number 2324-714, sorry.
Good.
And I second that.
Second that, all those in favor of going to a public hearing, right?
Aye.
Hi.
All those opposed, motion's carried, so, good. Agent report, permit number 232415, do you want to, is there anything you want to say there?
No, that was that was the sports court, right? Yeah. Rob Frangione was the design engineer on that one, and administrative approval, no work within 25 feet to the wetlands. They're probably not started yet.
Okay, number 12, Association of Conservation and Inland Wetlands Commission summary meeting, Chairman Stepanek. Well, Angela and I and Sandy, we went to this conference on November 11th in Bristol, Connecticut. I thought there were a couple of good speakers, and then I'm sure, let me talk about a little bit about what they said, and then maybe Angela and Sandy, you might want to chime in. I thought the keynote speaker was good. He talked about, let me see if I'll get the title of his, Climate Change in Connecticut and What We're Doing About It. He spent about a half his presentation on how they designed the research. But when he came up with the facts, I mean, one of the things that's going to happen is the sound is the depth of that sound, the height is going to go up at least 2 feet by 2100, the year 2100. And at the outset, at a very, he gave various models of his research, and the probably most improbable one, it could go up as high as 7 feet by the year 2100. And that's a lot of water. And what he's doing and his staff is helping towns on the Sound prepare for all of this, okay? And he did say that most of the people on the water, they've taken it for granted that they would be underwater in the upcoming years. And he's really helping people that are a half a block away from the water. So this, it's serious. Climate change is serious. There's no question. I think he was a professor of oceanography at the University of Connecticut, and it's a serious thing. And he was the keynote speaker there, and I really enjoyed his presentation. And then the other one that I liked was a special workout session. And this one had to do with, let me get my notes here. It's a workshop session titled "The Abundant Life in Old and Dead Trees." And this is very fascinating. At one time, dead trees and logs were considered hazards to the forests and landscapes, but right now, no more. They are now considered to be valuable and essential parts of a healthy forest, okay? And they're really essential for habitats and food for many terrestrial and aquatic species. And so, instead of clear cutting and clearing the forest, they just let the trees fall and chop up and let the branches stay there. And they, over time, a few years, they do absorbed into the soil, but that's what they call pro-forestation right now. And I really feel that that people should be aware of this and not decide to clear cut or cut up all the branches and haul them away. We have to leave them right there. So I was very impressed with the conference. We had some problems with blowing a fuse for lunch, but other than that, it was a good one. So Angela, do you have anything you want to say?
No, just to second what you said about those two sessions. The keynote speaker for me, the big takeaway was that small changes in sea level can have very significant changes in the degree of flooding, small changes in the average temperature. Could have, big increases in the frequency and extent of hurricanes. So I think we're in for changes over the next few decades. I too enjoyed the horticulture session, and I also attended a session on the Connecticut State Wildlife Action Plan. There's going to be an update of that in 2025, and there seems to be a very extensive plan for collaboration in putting that together. But it was certainly a worthwhile day.
Good. Sandy, anything?
Yeah, I would say for me, being the new guy on the block here, there were a lot of different sessions. So, 3 or 4 going on at any one time. So you have to pick your spots. Good learning curve. One thing I took away, I was at some of the sessions you two were at. So, ditto on what you guys are saying, but learning things about trees that I had no idea. And I'm I think I'm the guy in the woods. I mean, my entire life. I didn't know we had 400 and 600-year-old oak trees in Connecticut. I had no idea they lived more than 100 years, but that's normal. And for me, I just appreciate that because my yard here in town, I have, it's all forested and I have about 15 huge oak trees, 4 feet thick. So I have no idea how old those things are, but it was a fascinating event. I'm looking forward to next year.
Good.
I think Dan also said there were about 400 people there, so it was
It was
Turnout?
large. It was interesting meeting people from other towns. It's every town, as you know, has an inland wetlands commission. And they're wide and diverse, right? But they all have the same passions and the same concerns.
All right. Anything else? Any other business you want to talk? Did I hear a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn.
You guys pretty good. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see you in December.
Oh.